Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another After Build review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Eastern Model Mega Man Zero Copy X model. And if the name of the company, Eastern Model, doesn't ring any bells, well, let's take a little bit of a walk down memory lane here. Eastern Model is what has grown out of a company that was once known as Dragon Momoko. And if Dragon Momoko doesn't ring any bells, Dragon Momoko was once one of the larger purveyors of knockoff Gundam model kits. And by knockoff, I mean they would basically take the inner frame designs for some of your favorite model kits and redesign the armor around them and re-release them as new designs. And of course, this got under the skin of Bandai's legal department. So they were shut down and sued and raided and a bunch of other things over time. They kept coming back. But it looks like this final time that they got shut down, instead of coming back and doing knockoff kits, they decided to come back with their own line of model kits known as the ATK or Attack Girls models. Those have gotten actually a lot of really good reviews, a lot of good traction, and out of that, and proving that they could have their own legitimate IP, they started picking up other licenses in the Asian Chinese region. So right now they're doing Marvel Iron Man model kits and these Mega Man Zero kits. So far they've done two of them. They've done Mega Man Zero himself, and they've done Copy X. And today I'm going to be looking at the Copy X model. With that little bit of history out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about Copy X himself. And we should start off by talking about the accessories. And here is the Copy X with all of the accessories that this thing comes with. And this is an impressive assortment. Starting off with the basics, you have an open and closed hand for both sides. So you get some really cool dynamic effects that you can do with those hand choices. You also get replacement faces. The one that I keep on him mostly during this review is the open mouth angry screaming face, but you also get a replacement face that is the closed mouth angry face, and you also get two faces, one open mouth and one closed mouth, that are non-painted, and water slides that you can apply to those or just paint them yourself. You also get three really cool ground effect parts that remind me a lot of the Bandai's Tamashii Nations or Figure Eyes effect parts that you can use with your other figures. So you get two rounded ones and one ground effect that is supposed to be the trailing ground effect part from the Mega Cannon Burst. You also get one burst effect part that you can mount onto the action base, and you get one very large charged burst cannon shot that actually has a really cool light up and fading gimmick inside of it. So that thing is actually really cool, and one of my favorites. Though it is excessively heavy, you have to be very careful how you attach it to your action base because it will tilt the action base over. Speaking of, you also get an action base. It's a really nice blue in the center with a smoky outer ring that has the Mega Man Zero logo printed on it. It complements very well with the Mega Man Zero action base, which is red and in the same manner, and those two can be combined together with the included connections. You also have three triple cannon bursts that you can attach to the barrel of the Buster Cannon. These do not tend to stay in very well. They are very loose inside of there. There's no real way to lock them in place, but they do look really nice when you have the light up effect part from the Buster Cannon turned on, giving it that really cool firing effect. I really do wish the light piping worked a little bit better so it went all the way in, but you still get the same effect, so that's not too big of a deal. You also get two really cool collector's pins, one for Mega Man Zero, one for Copy X. I don't know if you get any of these collector pins in the Mega Man Zero box, but you do get them in this one, and I think that's actually pretty cool. And last but not least, you also get this really cool base adapter that you can attach to Copy X's back and have him doing some cool aerial poses that you can't do by just having him stand on the ground, and it is in fact compatible with the action base arms that you get in the kit. A couple of words about the action base arms themselves. They are very tight. They do not use screws, but they're almost a little too tight for my taste sometimes, in that you kind of feel like you might break them if you bend them too hard. So just kind of take it easy with those and you should be fine. Next up, I want to talk about a couple of the cool gimmicks that this kit has. Now, there's not a lot of like sliding armor or extra moving parts or anything like that, but what you do get included with the kit for your money, which you don't get with many other kits, are LEDs. You have an LED light that is in the forehead that really lights up that crest there, and you have the LEDs in the Buster Cannons, which really give those firing effects parts a really cool look, and most importantly, you have an LED effect inside of that large charged Buster Cannon shot effect part that has that really cool pulsating glow to it. Unfortunately, if you're in a brightly lit room, you're not going to be able to tell that those effects in the effect parts are actually on all the time, but when you see them start to pulsate, it really becomes obvious, and it really, really looks very nice. For this being the type of kit that it is and the build that it is, having those really cool LEDs just included with the kit along with the batteries is phenomenal, and I can't praise that enough. Next up, we need to talk about the build of this kit. I have to say that this is a very solid build. It's usually pretty straightforward. Parts of it are going to take a little bit longer than you might expect to put together just because of the amount of part and color separation that this kit has, which is both very nice and also a little on the annoying side simply because it does add time to the build, but I would much rather it be there than not be there. The only things that are not color separated that you get on the kit are a few color foil stickers, some that go up under the joint so you get some nice shiny parts going on there, and a few red accent marks that you can see at the tops of the thighs and on the shoulder pads. Now, the downsides to this build are very few, but I do feel the need to point them out because they could cause some people a little bit of consternation. The G-Runner, which are a set of poly caps that come with this build, are very hard and very stiff. They're not like soft rubber polycaps that you would get with a Bandai kit, and they tend to be very, very stiff when you have the joints all put together. I actually had to widen a couple of these out in the shoulders so that they would actually connect. Other than that, I didn't have any problems attaching them, and they do hold poses very well, even with the weight of the Buster Cannon or the feet that this thing has, but do be aware that they can be rather hard and rather stiff, so you're going to want to take care when moving this thing around into different poses. There are a few seam lines that you need to look at as well, most notably on the sides of the ankle armor, the upper side of the torso, and on the back of the calves. You could maybe say that the ones on the front and backs of the thighs are seam lines that you can remove, but I think they're actually supposed to be panel separation, so those are fine in my opinion. But the ones on the ankles, torso, and calves are ones that, if you are really wanting to make this thing look perfect, are the ones you're going to have to pay attention to. There's also a fair amount of flash on this kit that you're going to have to remove. The molding is really nice, but not super precise, so there are areas where you're going to have to trim down some excess flash of plastic and really just go in and clean it up a little bit here and there. But once you do, you are left with a beautiful kit with excellent surface detail. Not too much, not too little, the perfect amount to really get in there with your panel liner and make this thing really pop and shine. It holds poses phenomenally well. Even with the heaviness of the Buster Cannon, with the LEDs in them and the batteries and all, this thing is not going to be drooping on you anytime soon. So again, just take care with moving those joints as they can be a little bit stiff. And now let's move on to the bread and butter of just about any model kit build of this sort, and that is clearly the articulation. And the articulation on this guy is phenomenal. Even with those stiff joints and even with all the armor, the parts that this guy has around the elbows and the knees and the lower legs and the wrists, does not affect the articulation at all. So let's go through them real quick. Your elbows are double hinged. They don't get a full all the way bend, so you're not going to be touching that wrist to your bicep, but you're going to get it really close, and I think that gives it a really nice look. Knees are kind of the same way, where you've got them double hinged. You don't get a full bend, but you're going to get really close, and it's good enough. Your toes also have a bend that articulates upwards. Unfortunately, it doesn't articulate downwards on the toes, but the ankles make up for it. We'll talk about that in a second. Your shoulders are just a ball joint into a cap, but it also moves into a universal joint on the arm part of the shoulder joint, so you get a whole hell of a lot of range of movement there that your shoulder pads do not get in the way of at all. The hips are kind of the same way, where you've got pegs into universal joints there on the hip area. You also get an upper thigh swivel down there on the legs, and you get a calf swivel, which is not something you see very often in these sorts of model kits. Similarly, you get a really nice bicep swivel, and while you don't get a lower arm swivel, you do get really nice movement and swivel in the wrists. That kind of makes up for not having a full lower arm swivel, and the only thing that might negatively affect not having that swivel is the Buster Cannon, but you really don't need to rotate that thing on its own because it's sort of the same no matter what angle you're looking at it from. Your wrists are double jointed. You have a ball joint that is in the upper part of the wrist and then another ball joint that goes down into the hand, so you get a double movement there and some swivel. Same way in the feet, where you have a universal joint that goes up into a ball joint at the top, so you get a lot of movement out of those feet, which is why I don't think that the toes being able to point down on their own really matter all that much, though I could see some people maybe knocking it a little bit for not being able to get that super specific pose, but I'm not gonna knock it there. You also get a really cool double ball joint in the torso, where up in the chest there's a ball joint, and then down in the waist there's a ball joint, so you can kind of give it a really sassy sort of pose with its hand posed on its hip. There is supposedly a sliding mechanism on the lower ball joint, I think it is, where you can extend that up if you need to, but as tight as those joints are in there, mine just does not slide, so your mileage may vary there. If you decide to clean it out a little bit, loosen it some, you might get a little bit more use out of that sliding mechanism, but it doesn't really seem to matter one way or the other. You still get fantastic posability regardless of whether or not that sliding mechanism is in place. You also get a double ball joint in the neck, so you get an upper and lower ball joint there, giving that head a full range of motion, and the little red piece of neck armor is on a rotating space there, so you can just rotate that around freely, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because it tends to rotate on its own and you have to go in there and fiddle with it to get it into the right position that you like, but it's a blessing because you can do that. It's not just stuck in one place, and it's not going to affect the actual posability if you're trying to get some of those extreme natural looking head turns. So, what are my final thoughts on this kit? Well, for being the first kit that I've ever built from Eastern Model, and by extension I guess Dragon Momoko, I'm gonna have to say that I am absolutely 100% impressed. I did not really have any expectations going into this. I was a little bit skeptical of how the LEDs would work. I was a little skeptical of the build quality. I was skeptical of fitting issues, all of the things that you normally hear about when you're thinking of like third-party model kits that are knockoffs or reimaginings or whatever you want to call them of official designs. There's always that stigma of, oh, you're going to have fitting issues, oh, you're going to have articulation issues, oh, your parts are going to be the wrong size, or you're going to, all of that stuff. This does not have any of it. The only complaint I will have is that the first time I tried to build this model kit, I was missing some runners, so I had to get a second kit and replace the runners with that one while I wait for the official replacements to come in. So when I do get those official replacements, I will probably do a giveaway on the spare model kit that I have of this. Yeah, honestly, I have no real issues. There's a few puzzling parts of it, like some of the decisions that went into putting some inner frame parts inside the Buster Cannon that you literally can't see ever without completely disassembling the thing, and even if you disassemble it and try to display it, say, with armor off, you wouldn't be able to because they're not really connecting points, they're just tucked inside. I mean, that's kind of puzzling, but it's not bad. I think that overall, the only real negative I can say about the quality control on this is just that there is a bit of flashing on the runners. When you cut the parts out, you got to kind of trim them down a little bit, but that's not a problem. It's just doing a little bit of extra work. I'm not going to knock it. I'm not going to hold it against the kit. I'm not going to say that it's a bad kit because of it. It just is what it is. Bandai has, I think, spoiled a lot of people on their quality control. You know, the amount of cleanup that they do on their runners and the parts after they're molded. This doesn't really have those issues except for a little bit of flashing. And again, that G runner that I talked about earlier in the build segment is a little bit on the tight side just because of the material that they used, but otherwise does its job and does what it's supposed to do. So I can't really knock it there. Overall, if I had to give this thing a rating, which I hate because ratings are stupid, I'll give it, 4 Mega Mans out of 6. 2's always the most difficult. I know they tried to make 9 and 10 more difficult, but we're going to give it a 4 out of 6. Again, I'm knocking 2 Mega Mans off of this Mega Man because number 1, I hate ratings, and number 2, I don't like the flash cleanup, but it's a minor quibble. Mileage may vary again. Yours may not have nearly as much of the flashing left on it. So, that's it for my review of the Eastern Model Mega Man Zero Copy X kit. Please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Send me a message. Drop me a, hey, how's it going? If you dislike something, please leave a comment letting me know what you dislike so that I can try and improve there. Nothing ever gets better unless somebody tells me what the problem is. So I'm still learning a lot of these filming techniques and recording techniques for these reviews. So just drop me a line. Let me know where you think I can do better. There you go. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all on the next build.